This happened several years ago, a few months after I moved to London from Romania. I'd been living in Romania for university, and because of my living situation there, I had to learn the language fast and thoroughly. Most people around me didn't speak English outside of the university. So one day in London, I ordered an Uber and noticed the driver had a Romanian name. I was actually excited. I thought maybe I could practice my Romanian, make sure I wasn't getting rusty, maybe even make a friend. The driver picked me up and he was on the phone with someone speaking Romanian. So I just sat quietly in the back listening. That's when I heard him start talking about me. He told the person on the phone that he hated this country, that British women were so fat and ugly. Then he said, "At least this one has a nice chest, but why can't she lose some weight?" And he just kept going, insulting me and other British women, assuming I couldn't understand a single word. When we got to my destination, I spoke to him in perfect Romanian with the distinct accent from the region I'd lived in. I watched his head basically do the exorcist spin. He turned a shade of red I have never seen anywhere else in nature. And then I gave him a parting gift he'll never forget. Let me tell you the whole story. Let me give you some background because it matters for this story. I'm British, born and raised, but when I was in my early 20s, I decided to go to university in Romania. It was a great program, way cheaper than British universities, and I'd always wanted to live abroad. I moved to Romania knowing exactly zero Romanian. I knew hello and thank you, and that was it. I figured I'd pick it up as I went, that most people would speak English and I'd be fine. I was not fine. The city I moved to was not very touristy. The university had international students, sure, and professors spoke English in lectures. But outside of campus, almost nobody spoke English. The shop workers didn't. My landlord didn't. The people at the post office, the bank, the pharmacy, none of them spoke English. So I had two choices. Struggle through every single daily interaction using Google Translate and hand gestures, or learn Romanian fast. I chose to learn Romanian fast. I hired a tutor, I took intensive classes, I watched Romanian TV shows with subtitles. I forced myself to speak Romanian even when it was embarrassing and I sounded like a toddler. And slowly, over about 6 months, I got pretty good. By the time I'd been there a year, I was fluent. Not just conversational, fluent. I could understand regional accents. I could pick up on slang. I could tell where someone was from based on how they spoke. I even started dreaming in Romanian. I lived there for 2 years total. By the time I moved back to the UK, Romanian felt almost as natural as English. I was genuinely bilingual. So I moved to London for work. I'd been there for maybe 3 or 4 months. I was still adjusting, still getting used to being back in Britain, and I really missed speaking Romanian. I missed that part of my life. That's why when I saw the Uber driver had a Romanian name, I got excited. London has a massive Romanian community, so it wasn't surprising at all. It was a weekday afternoon. I needed to get across London for a meeting. I ordered an Uber, and when the driver's profile popped up, I saw his name. Very clearly Romanian. First name, last name, both Romanian. Like I said, London has tons of Romanians. There's huge Romanian communities in areas like Barking, Ilford, even parts of North London. So seeing a Romanian Uber driver was completely normal. But still, I was genuinely excited. I thought, perfect, I can practice my Romanian. Maybe we can chat about Romania. Maybe he knows the city I lived in. The car pulled up, a Toyota Prius. I got in the back seat and said hello in English. He said hello back, but he was clearly on the phone. He had it on speaker and I could hear someone on the other end speaking Romanian. I figured, okay, he's on a call. I'll just sit quietly and let him finish. It would be rude to interrupt. So I settled into the back seat and just listened. At first, the conversation was normal. The person on the other end sounded like a friend, or a family member back in Romania, was asking how his day was going, when he'd be done with work, typical stuff. The driver said he still had a few more hours left on his shift. Then the person asked something like, "Do you have someone in the car right now?" And the driver said yes. He said, "Yeah, I have a passenger right now." And then his tone changed. It got more casual, more gossipy, like he was about to complain about something. He said, "God, I hate this country sometimes." I thought, okay, that's a little rude, but whatever. Maybe he's having a bad day. People vent, but then he kept going. He said, "The women here, they're so fat and ugly." I sat up a little straighter in the back seat. Did I hear that right? He continued, I don't understand how people let themselves go like that. Back home, women take care of themselves. Here, it's like nobody cares. They just eat fish and chips all day and get fat. The person on the other end laughed and said something I couldn't quite make out. The driver said, "This one in my car right now? At least she has a nice chest." But seriously, why can't she lose some weight? She'd probably be pretty if she wasn't so fat. I just sat there, frozen. My brain was trying to process what I was hearing. This man, this Uber driver who I'd been excited to talk to, was sitting 3 feet in front of me, insulting me to his friend, assuming I couldn't understand. And he didn't stop. Oh no, he just kept going. He started talking about British women in general. How they were lazy. How they didn't dress well. How they drank too much and had no class. He went on this whole rant about how dating in London was impossible because women here had no standards for themselves, but impossibly high standards for men. The person on the other end was eating it up, laughing, agreeing with him. At one point, the driver said, "You know what the worst part is? They act like they're doing you a favor just by existing. Like you should be grateful they're even talking to you. Meanwhile, they can't even be bothered to go to the gym." He even complained about British culture in general. Said everyone here was cold and unfriendly. Said people in London never smiled or said hello. Said the weather was miserable and made everyone miserable. Now, I want to be clear about something. I've always been a little bit on the heavier side. I'm not huge, but I'm not thin either. I'm just average, maybe a little curvy. And back when I lived in Romania, people there had absolutely no problem commenting on it. Romanians are very direct. If you gain weight, they tell you. If you look tired, they tell you. There's no filter, so I'd gotten used to it. I'd developed a thick skin about it. But this was different. This wasn't someone being direct to my face. This was someone talking behind my back in a language he thought I couldn't understand, while I was literally sitting right there, in his Uber, that I was paying for. The audacity of it was almost impressive. We were about halfway to my destination, somewhere in central London. I was sitting in the back seat just listening to this man tear me apart in Romanian, and I started thinking about what I was going to do. Part of me wanted to say something right away, interrupt his call and let him know I understood every word. Watch him squirm. But another part of me thought, no, wait, let him finish. Let him really dig himself into a hole. Then drop the bomb right at the end. So I waited. I sat there quietly, keeping my face neutral, pretending to look at my phone, while this man continued to insult me. He talked about how British culture had ruined people's work ethic, how everyone here was entitled and lazy, how back in Romania, people had respect and standards. The irony, by the way, of him saying all this while working as an Uber driver in London and insulting a paying customer was not lost on me. Finally, we were getting close to my destination. He started wrapping up his phone call. Told his friend he had to go, he'd call him back later. They said goodbye. He hung up the phone, and we drove in silence for about 30 seconds. That's when I made my move. We were about a block away from my destination. He was slowing down, looking for the address. I leaned forward slightly and said in perfect Romanian, with the accent from the region I'd lived in, "Can you just pull over there on the right?" I watched it happen in real time. His head whipped around so fast I thought he might get whiplash. His eyes went wide. His face started turning red. Not a little red, deep tomato red. He stammered something. I don't even remember what. It was barely words. He pulled over where I'd asked. Just stopped the car completely frozen. I opened the door and got out. Took my bag. And then I leaned back in and said, still in Romanian, "You know what? You're not attractive and you're also fat. So maybe you shouldn't make comments like that about other people." His mouth was hanging open. He looked like a fish. No words were coming out. I said, "Have a nice day," in English this time, and closed the door. I walked away and didn't look back. But I could see him in my peripheral vision, just sitting there in his car, completely frozen. Probably blocking traffic on a London street. I got about half a block away before I started laughing. I couldn't help it. The look on his face was just so perfect. The absolute horror and embarrassment. I have never in my entire life felt more proud of myself than I did in that moment. Later that day, I left him a 1-star review. In the review, I wrote, "Driver was on a personal phone call the entire ride and made inappropriate comments about passengers. Would not recommend. I didn't mention the Romanian thing. I figured the review itself would be bad enough. And honestly, I didn't need to explain. He knew exactly what he'd done. I think it's because of how often people assume things based on appearance. This guy looked at me, saw a British woman in London, and assumed I was just another clueless passenger. He assumed he could say whatever he wanted in his language, and I'd never know. He thought he was safe. He thought he could insult me to my face, essentially, and face zero consequences. But the thing is, you never really know who you're talking to. You don't know what languages they speak. You don't know what experiences they've had. You don't know what they understand. And this is especially true in London. London is one of the most multicultural cities in the world. You've got people from everywhere. People who've lived everywhere. People who speak dozens of languages. I've had this happen a few times, actually, where people speak in foreign languages around me assuming I don't understand. Usually it's harmless. Someone commenting on the weather or talking about dinner plans. But sometimes it's people saying things they absolutely wouldn't say if they knew I understood. Rude things, insulting things. Things about me or about people around us. And every time I have to make a choice. Do I let them know I understand? Do I call them out? Or do I just let it slide? Usually I let it slide. It's not worth the confrontation. It's not worth the awkwardness. But this time was different. This guy had spent 15 minutes absolutely tearing me apart to his friend. 15 minutes of nonstop insults. About my appearance, about British women in general, about how lazy and entitled everyone here is. All while I was paying him to drive me somewhere. All while he was supposed to be providing a service. So yeah, I called him out, and I don't regret it for a second. I never found out what happened to that driver. I don't know if he got in trouble with Uber for the review. I don't know if he told anyone about what happened. I don't know if he learned anything from the experience, but I hope he did. I hope every time he gets in his car to pick up a passenger in London, he thinks twice before insulting them in another language. I hope he remembers the British woman who spoke perfect Romanian and called him out. And I hope other drivers, and frankly other people in general, remember this story and think before they speak. Here's the thing. It's 2025. The world is more connected than ever. People move around. People learn languages. Especially in a city like London, where literally everyone is from somewhere else. You can't assume that just because someone looks a certain way or comes from a certain place, they don't understand what you're saying. I learned Romanian because I had to. Because I wanted to be able to live my life in Romania without constantly struggling. And I'm so glad I did. Not just because it opened up that experience for me, but because it gave me moments like this. Moments where I could stand up for myself in a way that truly mattered. If you're learning a language right now, keep going. It's hard. It's frustrating. You'll feel stupid sometimes, but it's worth it. Not just for travel or work, but for moments like this where you can surprise someone who had you completely figured wrong. And if you're someone who likes to talk about people in other languages, assuming they don't understand, maybe think twice. Because in London, of all places, you never know who's sitting in the back seat. As for me, I still speak Romanian. I practice when I can. I watch Romanian films and shows. I follow Romanian news. It's a part of my life now, a part of who I am. And every time I speak it, I think about that Uber driver's face when he realized I understood every word. That shade of red, that look of pure horror, somewhere in London traffic. I have never reached such levels of self-pride before or since. And honestly, I probably never will again. But that's okay. That one moment was enough. Thanks for listening to my story. And remember, never assume someone doesn't understand you, especially not in London, because they just might be fluent in your language and waiting for the perfect moment to prove it.